let's face it, the vegan cheese alternatives just aren't the same. And today I wanted to share 10 little tips that I wish I had known in the very beginning of going all in with the vegan diet, because it has definitely been a struggle for me at first. But I'm so grateful I went through it, and maybe some of these tips will help some of you who are aspiring vegans, or maybe just entertainment for those of you who already are vegan. So the first one is purpose. Now, we all know that dairy isn't the best for our physical health, but if we're just doing it for physical health, I think it's just not a strong enough motivation to go vegan or to give up dairy or cheese, because it's something we have been doing our entire life. It's a habit. And also, I would say out of all the animal products, cheese is definitely the most addictive, or dairy, because it has something called casomorphin, which literally acts like morphine to our brain. So it's highly addictive. It's highly stimulating. For me personally, giving up meat, eggs, fish, all the other stuff, honey, it wasn't challenging at all. But dairy is that one thing that's just so addictive. So we need a strong why. And for me, what that has been is just the suffering of the animals that they have to go through. And we'll talk more about that later, because I can already hear a lot of people thinking, cows, they don't have to suffer in order to produce milk. But yeah, something that I then just did on a regular basis in the very beginning is just binge watching and rewatching over and over again the two documentaries, Dominion and I always mix them up, but Earthling and Dominion. Those two, I would just watch them on repeat to just remind myself of what purchasing these products does to other sentient beings on the planet. So reminding ourselves over and over again and finding that really strong why, that really strong purpose. And yeah, then the second tip is to also acquire wisdom and knowledge about what dairy does to our body. And I think the Dr. Neil Bernard is going to be able to do this job a much better justice than me. So I'm just going to include a clip here of him talking about what dairy does to our body. So I'll include it now.
And let me put in cheese here. And part of the reason is people think of cheese as a comfort food. And I'm going to say it's the one that doesn't love you back. Here's why. Cheese is 70% fat. People get lured to it because it has those casomorphins. You've heard me talk about this before. The casein protein in cheese breaks apart to release casomorphins, which are opiates. They go to the brain and attach to the very same receptor that narcotics attach to. So we're going to think, well, isn't that good? Isn't that a comfort food? Won't I feel better? Yes, just enough to get hooked on cheese. But the problem with this is that it's also a bit of a downer. When people eat this extremely high-fat food, their blood viscosity, the thickness of their blood, increases. That means their blood doesn't flow as well. It means it doesn't oxygenate their muscles as well, and it doesn't oxygenate the brain as well, and it causes a sluggishness over time. So after people have eaten a big hunk of cheese pizza, this is not the time when they feel like playing tennis. It doesn't. It's a downer. So both the effect of the casomorphins over the long run can be negative, and the effect on blood viscosity can be negative. So it's gonna harm your athletic potential, but also harm your ability to concentrate and stay awake. So I think cheese and other dairy products, top of the bad guy list.
The third tip is to always make sure we're eating enough, especially in the very beginning of our journey. So for me, I think one of the reasons why it was a little bit challenging to give it up in the very beginning many years ago is because back then I was in a little bit of a restrictive mindset with food. I would often undereat, do lots of extreme intermittent fasting and things like that. And then once I gave up all of that and just fueled up at every meal, ate an abundance of carbohydrates, most importantly, a lot of fruit, high quality stuff, the desire to eat cheese goes away with time. It does take time, and I think in the beginning it's so important to just not put yourself in this box and say, I'm never gonna eat it again, but just say, okay, for now I'm not going to have it. And our taste buds readjust every 21 days. So the foods I'm eating now, I don't think I would have been craving them, like, let's say 10 years ago, before I was into, that kind of eating that I'm into right now at all. But now that my taste buds have adjusted to lots of fruit and lots of carbohydrates, I get so excited before every meal. Like, I love my food every single day, and I think that's just so important to know that it takes time for the taste buds to adjust. But once they have adjusted, like nowadays I find myself, I don't even think about these things that I used to be addicted to. I don't even remember that they exist sometimes. I think it also helps that a lot of people in my work environment eat a vegan diet. So pretty much all my friends are vegan. The only people that I am close with who aren't is my family, and still they eat pretty like clean, lots of vegetables, and when we're together we also often eat plant-based. So like, for me, it's not that much in my periphery anymore. That also brings me to the next point, and that is our environment, our friends, our home can definitely have an impact on our eating habits and on our behavior around food. Or like, let's just face it, we are the average of the 5 people that we hang around the most. So when everyone we hang out with eats lots of animal products, dairy and cheese, then it's most likely going to be very challenging for us to change that behavioral pattern. And also when we live with people who eat that way and the house is surrounded with these foods, then it can be a challenge. So I think it can be really helpful to remove yourself from that just for a little while. Something that can be really, really helpful if you don't have any friends who eat, a vegan diet or something, is to go to festivals, retreats, even yoga centers where there are people who eat that way, or maybe who only serve plant-based foods. Surrounding yourself with others and being in an environment where that's just the norm can be extremely helpful. And that also brings me to the 4th tip, and that is also to tune out of all the other voices and to only listen to your own heart, and to erase other people's opinions about what is wrong and what is right. Because a lot of people are convinced, and that's completely all right, like there's nothing wrong with that. Everyone is allowed to have their own opinion, and I'm also not saying that what I preach or what I share here is the ultimate truth and it's the only way to live. It's just working for me, and I have a lot of friends and acquaintances who it works for as well, or I've met a lot of people who it works for really, really well. And I know from connecting with you guys in the comment sections that some of you also really love this. So I just love sharing about it, spreading it. And for those of you where it resonates, you can take it. And if it doesn't, you can leave it. But tuning out of people's opinions who think that it's okay to slaughter cows. And I'm not going to go more into detail here, because if you really want to know, just watch Earthling or watch Dominion, and after that you can still decide if you want to eat cheese or not. But it's not okay to slaughter or just in general exploit animals. And something I also want to point out here is something that really helped me to observe mothers who are breastfeeding, and it looks like such an intense process. I'm not a mother, I've never had kids, but I can only imagine how much energy it requires of the mother to produce that breast milk for her kid. And then just imagine a human being locked up in a cage. Like, just imagine a human woman who just had a kid to be locked up in a cage and then just having to produce breast milk for another species. It just, on all levels, it just doesn't feel right. So when people tell you, these animals, they're here to serve us and it's not hard for them, it's just so important to stay in your own zone and to stay in your lane and to just tune out of that, erase that opinion, and follow your heart, follow your compassion and your love. And also know that people who feel that way, that's completely alright, but they are just not aware of what is going on behind those locked cages and how tough it actually is for the cows and also for their kids who are not able to drink the milk of their own mothers. So yeah, I think that's just really important. And also that death is also involved in the milk industry, that it's not that just because it's milk, no one has to die for it. There's also death involved for that and lots of violence and cruelty. So yeah, remembering that at every time is so important. And then another thing that I already kind of alluded to with the breastfeeding of mothers, to observe that and see what an intense process that is. Also observing pets and the love that we have for them and how beautiful it is that we can give them freedom to walk around when we're outside. Like, let's say you have a dog or let's say you have cats, and also asking yourself, would I want to drink their milk if it was just like raw in its natural state? Probably not. So yeah, that can also be a help. And then another thing that I want to mention here as well that really helped me is to just in general, like in a way, raise my awareness, raise my consciousness for things going on in the world, and also just in general. And some teachings that have really helped me to elevate my awareness and my consciousness is the teachings of Eckhart Tolle, and just in general including and incorporating meditation into my life, and feeling the oneness with all beings. Like, ultimately we all are connected. And one of the ways I always see it, like a while ago, my dad was calling me, and literally like 1 minute after he called me, my phone was turned off. I turned it on and I saw that, and I wanted to actually call him in that exact moment as well, and we hadn't agreed on anything. So those are always moments, and I have had so many times where I was calling my mom and then she literally wanted to call me at the exact time. So that's always where I realized, okay, we all are connected. Or a while ago, I messaged a friend and we hadn't spoken in like half a year, and she said literally that morning she was thinking about me. So I have no doubt that we all are connected in some way, and becoming aware of that connection through practices like meditation or just being in silence can be really, really helpful to create that awareness and that consciousness, and that then helping us to not want to go to cheese. Also, because we are more aware of our feelings and emotions, and that way our desire to maybe potentially suppress them, because as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, cheese is highly stimulating. So when we have heavy emotions coming up, then wanting to numb them with something very stimulating can be tempting. But when we raise our consciousness and our awareness for oneness, for being, then that desire to suppress what arises can lessen to a degree. But then also recognizing that it is an addiction and it does take time to release these addictions. So I would ultimately say that the easiest is to just say, okay, for now I'm not going to have it, until at one point you'll find yourself having forgotten about it. And then potentially, if you do feel like the environment you're in is influencing you in that way, whether it's the people or the place where there's just a lot of that stuff around that you feel addicted to, then maybe removing yourself from that environment for some time if that is possible. And then the last thing I'll mention, because I have also lived with my parents at one point where I also was surrounded by a lot of cheese, and in the past that has been tempting for me. But what has really helped me is to create financial health for myself and create that abundance where there's way more than enough for me to go around financially, because I have also realized that one of the triggers that wanted me to go to cheese was that feeling of fear or lack around money for some reason. And yeah, I think that there is some correlation between that and the desire to wanting to numb with extremely stimulating things like cheese, for example. So yeah, those were all my tips. If you have any tips, because I'm sure there might be a lot of vegans here watching, because my channel is a lot about that kind of stuff, then leave them in the comment section down below. And in my next video, I'm going to share about my extreme minimalist home gym, which, yeah, I'm very excited about. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you there maybe. Bye.